And three, two, one. Welcome, welcome, good people. How are y'all doing? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, to wherever you are in the world. I'm your co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Half Man, Half Amazing, the awkward, awesome one, Mr. Main Event, Malik Miles. Welcome back to another episode of the Conflict Management Show. We are a MMA combat sports show that covers the news, the fights, and the highlights going on in the world of combat sports, UFC, sometimes even boxing. And there's a lot to talk about today. And before then, my co-host, my fellow co-host, please introduce yourself to the people.
The future Hall of Famer, the one namer, the Oracle of UFC business decisions. It's Edon, and we are back again to talk about more breaking MMA news and to recap UFC Seattle, Song Yadong versus Henry Cejudo.
Yep. And so we're gonna break it down real quick for you. I'm gonna break down the fight. We're gonna announce the fights. I'm gonna announce the fights of the fights that have been announced in the past 48 hours and the new ones, and then we'll kind of go through and talk about it. Sound good? So we got one of the ones that we got were Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva. If you haven't heard, if you needed reason to why this is amazing, we're gonna give you a little breakdown why you should check them out, right? If you haven't heard them before. Alexa Grasso, the queen, the former flyweight champion, the woman who went toe to toe with arguably the greatest women's fighter of all time on three separate occasions in a super competitive series and pulled off one of the greatest UFC upsets in the last 30 years by beating Valentina Shevchenko, the number one pound for pound women's fighter in the world by a rear naked choke, and she as a boxer, which is crazy. And she's amazing. You got the boxing, got the striking, got the grappling, all that jazz, right? And then on top of that, on the other side of that card, you got Natalia Silva, the ray of sunshine herself, emerging Brazilian superstar, surging contender. You got two best strikers in this division going at it. Will be a litmus test, a true litmus test for Natalia Silva to see where she stacks up in the division. For Alexa Grasso, this is her chance to beat a surging contender and get back and get the rubber match with Valentina Shevchenko for her to prove that she is the true queen of the flyweight division and become a two-time flyweight champion. It's gonna be great times. It's a very exciting fight. That's amazing. That's gonna be an electric fight. Then we got Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. Juliana Pena is the first woman to win the Ultimate Fighter tournament, and also another woman who pulled off one of the biggest upsets of the 2020s, of the 2010s, of the last 30 years by beating Amanda Nunes. So when you think about greatest female fighters of all time, the consensus is either Amanda Nunes or Valentina Shevchenko. Everyone puts them back to back. People generally going to say Amanda Nunes and then Valentina second. But backs against the ropes, no one thought it could happen. Herculean effort. She pulls off the rear naked choke as well to beat one of the GOATs. Kayla Harrison, the only person to win back-to-back gold medals in the sport of judo for Team USA in Team USA Olympic history. That is insane. Male or female, she's the only one. And she has dominated. She has exerted her dominance over every female fighter that in bantamweight. She's destroyed Holly Holm, worked her. And then the other, I can't remember. It's 2 a.m. I can't remember. But that other last lady she went also worked her. Kayla Harrison's been on a phenomenal streak so far. So that's going to be a super exciting fight, and that's going to be for the bantamweight belt. Other fights going to be a number one contenders, I'm assuming. And next, Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. This is also going to be a banger of a fight. This is going to be, if you haven't seen it, this is going to be one to definitely check in for as well, because Justin Gaethje, 13 performance bonuses, formerly known as knockout of the night or submission of the night, 13 performance bonuses in 13 fights. 20 of his 25 wins have been by knockout. And then you got Rafael Fiziev, the man from Azerbaijan, 6 straight performance bonuses. They had to fight 2 years ago. That was dynamic. That was super. It was a really good fight. Then we got Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. You got the number one pound for pound women's fighter in the world, future Hall of Famer, arguably one of the best female fighters of all time, against French kickboxing superstar Manon Fiorot. That's going to be exciting. That's going to be for the flyweight belt. Jack Della Maddalena versus Bilal Muhammad for the welterweight belt. Leon Edwards, Mr. Headshot Bang, the pride of Birmingham versus Sean Brady. You got Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. That's also a banger of a fight for light heavyweight. Jamal Hill, former light heavyweight champion. Khalil Roundtree, former light heavyweight contender. He had the war of a fight with Alex Pereira in his last bout, that was an amazing fight, by the way. Both guys are super game. They're super down to leave it all in the octagon. They're really great strikers. I think this is going to be a fireworks show. We got Gene Silva versus Bryce Mitchell. That also, if you know, that kind of sells itself. Gene Silva, one of the fighters, one of the top 4, one of the fighters leading the charge for the Fighting Nerds, that phenomenal fight gym in Brazil, taking over, and the always controversial Bryce Mitchell. It's gonna be that UFC Miami card is phenomenal. So, of the fights we just mentioned, which one do you want to get into first? Is there one that you have in mind because I know we talked about Natalia Silva and Alex Grasso already.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about Juliana Pena and Kayla Harrison, the Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. Valentina, we talked about Valentina and Manon Fiorot. So that means Jack Della and Bilal, Leon and Sean Brady, Gene Silva, Bryce Mitchell, and then Jamal Hill's fight. Do you have one that?
So the one that's nearest to us is Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev, because Gaethje was supposed to fight Hooker. Hooker broke his hand, and I don't know if you saw that video of him on his daughter's YouTube channel when he lifted up that hand looked nasty.
Yeah, Dan Hooker said if they would allow him to get a bigger glove, he would still fight. So he would just get a large glove and then ask for like a 3XL glove, which would look crazy. But and it sucks to break your your left hand 2 weeks out from the fight, because that fight, I think that was one of the fights that people are looking forward to the most, because when you hear Dan the Hangman Hooker versus the human highlight reel, your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, Justin Gaethje, in a three rounder. Oh man, that sounds like fight of the year front runner. Fight of the year already right there in itself. So I think that so many people were so amped about this that I think of the options that we got for a replacement, I think that the Rafael Fiziev fight versus Gaethje is the best of the options that we had. And also, the last fight was amazing too, because when you're looking at it, also props to Rafael Fiziev for taking this on for like 14 days notice. That because when we had the options, it was Rafael Fiziev, Justin Gaethje, or Mateus Gamrot, Justin Gaethje. There was Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje, Arman Tsarukyan versus Justin Gaethje, or Islam versus Justin Gaethje. So I feel like outside of getting a title shot, the Fiziev fight is the bet, or Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje. But I feel like out of the getting this title, I feel like Fiziev probably was like the best matchup as far as the excitement level.
Yeah, for sure, and especially to give Gaethje a striker who's not going to be totally and completely different than Dan Hooker, which kind of the matchups that you saw floated look like they really would have been completely different and not very easy for Justin Gaethje to adjust his camp and his game plan to. Kind of Fiziev combined with the fight that they already had, which was super close and entertaining. I think this is really ideal if you're the UFC. You get to bring in Fiziev, who's been on the sidelines now for a year and a half. You're rematching two guys who had an excellent fight. It's going to be a striking battle. There's not really a ton of game planning necessarily that you need to have at least an entertaining fight. So big props to Fiziev for being the one to take and answer the call. And Justin Gaethje stays, even at this point in his career where he could be picking his fights more carefully and like trying to plot a path back to the belt. I mean, sticking around, favorite fighter, not backing down from anybody, even to the point where he's got the fight with Fiziev and he's calling out other guys who he assumed at the time said no because either they couldn't make weight or whatever. And so it's Justin Gaethje's just as game as they come, and that fight's going to be fireworks.
Absolutely, because it's one thing I think that people often forget about Justin Gaethje is that he's a highly accomplished wrestler. Like, he himself considers himself a wrestler, but he doesn't use we rarely see him use his wrestling. So I feel like a lot of people, when they think Justin Gaethje, they think striker. So they think, oh yeah, Mateus Gamrot, like he's I don't know how he would do with the grappling or Islam, but it's like, if Justin Gaethje wanted to, like, he could use his wrestling, but it just prefers for the more exciting route. But it kind of is a bit of a, like, I understand why Dustin Poirier was like, understandably was like, because he said he's got one fight left and he wants it in Louisiana. And I think for all that Dustin Poirier has done for our sport, the moments he's given us, the career he's had, I think if you're Dustin Poirier, you've deserved the shot, the call to be like, hey, I got one fight left and I wanted to do it in my home state. I want to do it in Louisiana, do it amongst family, do it among friends. We're getting to see this recently with, and we'll talk about later, Anthony Smith's retirement fight, getting to do it as close to home as possible in Kansas City. I think that I like that, getting to see this. You know what I mean? Getting to see fighters get to kind of like go out on their own terms and kind of be like, hey, instead of having to fly halfway across the world. I think that, so if you're Dustin Poirier, you don't want to like risk it. You got one fight left. You don't want to risk and take a super dangerous fight on like 10 days notice, 12 days notice. Yeah, you win, you look really epic, but what if you lose? You don't want that to be the last thing. So I understand that one. I think Mateus Gamrot, he's a talented fighter. He's a good fighter. He's game. But the unfortunate thing is that what was originally scheduled, or what was originally promised, was, in terms of food, it'd be like someone going, hey, here's a tomahawk steak with some chimichurri and like mashed potatoes, and you get some brisket on the side. You got some like this and that, you know what I mean? The asparagus and all that. Like, you got a full spread. You got a full Christmas spread, right? Or like a full proper meal, right? And then someone go, oh, wait, we got to switch it. Here's some Chili's. Chili's is still good. Chili's is still fire. But when you're thinking you was about to get Fogo de Chao, and then they got to hit you with the, hey, let's go get Chili's instead, you're going to be like, I guess. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what was, it was, I feel like it was I imagine it was a harder fight trying to replace, just because of the level of excitement that there was behind Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje, that trying to match up equal amount of excitement would have been hard to do.
Mhm.
And also, if I'm Arman Saruki, I'm not taking that fight, bro. I was about to fight for the belt, and I just got hurt. Why am you risking that? That sucks. So yeah, that's gonna be a banger of a fight.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely one to circle and look out for because very rarely do we have a situation where a last second replacement ends up not happening or the fight because even if someone's off weight, they'll make it happen. They'll do a catch weight or something. So you're pretty much guaranteed as much as can be that that fight will happen, and as pretty much far as you can guarantee that will be a banger. The other one that's interesting because most of the other ones that are really eye catching to me were already announced. The other one that's really interesting is Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree,
I like
because
that fight.
I think it makes a ton of sense for Khalil in particular, and I kind of wonder if Jamal. I don't know. Should he take some time off? I mean, it feels like the Yuri fight was just last week. I don't know when it actually was. Like, I'll look up when it actually was, but do you think it's maybe too soon for him to be taking that fight?
I I feel like it's hard to guess or hard to know, right? Where
Mhm.
only each fight it's a individual fighter thing, right? Where it's like most times, right? Where I feel that like even only the fighter will know if it's too early or too soon. Maybe hindsight 2020, maybe looking back, they may say, hey, this was a little too early, or hey, this was that, like we were talking with Volk, like Volk's situation with the Islam and Taporia fight, right?
Mhm.
I think that me personally, I like both fighters, but I think that this may be a little too early. But it could just be because how long ago was that fight, or how recent was that fight? Maybe like 2 months,
It
a month,
was, yeah, January 18th, and they're scheduled to fight April 26th. So it'll be like 3 months.
3 months. But uh,
I don't. I think that's a little
maybe
too soon. Like all things considered, to be back to back now losses by KO TKO against two of the heaviest strikers, I'd kind of like to see a little bit of a break. This feels like one of those things where a guy's losing and he says, "Oh, I want to get that back. I want to get that back. I want to get that back." But I don't know if there's enough time between January 18th and April 26th to mentally reset and say, "Okay, I realized what I did wrong in the last fight and I can correct it now in this fight." Or it's also not such a super good matchup. It's not like Jamal Hill is this great grappler and okay, the guy he's fighting, even though he's coming off back-to-back losses, he's going to go fight a guy who has really bad takedown defense. In that case, you'd say, okay, yeah, get back on the horse. You're going to go fight a guy where it's a good matchup for you. Go ahead, like you got it. Even at your worst, you should be able to get through this. Khalil Roundtree just came off being as close as anybody's gotten to Alex. And I feel like this is a situation where Khalil might have got the rub from Alex, where he saw that peak of the mountain, where he saw what the highest level is. And I think that he could have gained a confidence from that fight in saying, I did better than everybody else who has gone up against that mountain of a man. And I came closest. And I hung in there and stood tall on my feet for all those minutes. So if I can do that against him, I can do that against everybody else in the division. There's no self doubt or uh, inner inner hesitancy that I have to fight if I'm Khalil now. I could go out there and let it all hang out because I know that maybe I wasn't good enough to beat the best in the world right away. But I got a lot closer than all these other guys, including the guys I'm going to be facing in the run up to try and get back to the title.
That is true. I think that Jamal's last fight with Yuri, right? That
Mhm.
was my favorite fight on that card. I was like, man, that was fight of the night for me. I was like, man, like, yeah, because that was the fight where Dricus fought Sean, if I'm not mistaken,
Let me see.
or
That was Makachev Moicano.
Makachev. My bad, sorry. That was Makachev.
Mhm.
But of that card, that was the Yuri and Jamal fight was my favorite fight on that card, right? Jamal is a really good striker and former champion. Khalil Roundtree is also a really great striker and a former title challenger. I think that when you put these two fights together, yes, they make sense for both fight. Like you, I guess you could look at it and say that makes sense for both fighters. Khalil Roundtree beats Jamal Hill. That kind of makes his case for another rematch because who else is Alex going to fight
Mhm.
after he beats Magomed? And for Jamal Hill, this will be his second loss in a row, right? To Alex.
His last fight.
Or yeah, he only has one loss to Alex, right?
Let me see.
Because it was just that
Yeah.
one knockout.
It was just that one.
So
He hasn't. He was gonna fight Alex again if he could have beat Yuri, but he didn't. So it's he's just got the one.
okay, so that I feel like you beat someone like Khalil Roundtree who was able to like push Alex to the limit in a sense, right?
Mhm.
I think that opens up the opportunity for you to go and like kind of make your case for another Alex fight. Because again, in that same instance, who is Alex going to fight next? Because he's cleared out once he beats Magomed, that means a lot of the people who he could fight he's already beaten. I think that the best case scenario, while this is the best case scenario for Jamal slash Khalil, but maybe worst case scenario for the fans and maybe the UFC as a whole. If Magomed wins, that's where I feel like that's what I'm talking about. I think if Magomed Ankalaev wins, it's the best case scenario for Jamal and Khalil, but probably the worst case scenario for the UFC and fans. Best
Mhm.
case because new champion means new matchups, means the winner of that fight will probably fight for the belt, right?
Mhm.
Magomed wins, chances are the winner of Khalil Roundtree and Jamal Hill fight for the belt next. The reason why I feel like it would be worst case scenario for fans in the UFC is to go from a global superstar that is Alex Pereira, who's beloved across the world and is putting on classics like a record player, to Magomed Ankalaev, who's a really good fighter, but no one knows who he is, nor is he good at selling fights or promoting fights. Nor is there anything that's like separates him from all the other, you know what I mean? Like that, just that pop, you know what I mean? That like, oh
Yeah.
man, like I want to go see this person fight, right? If if Alex Pereira wasn't fighting Magomed, would you be as interested as you are in this fight? Like if he was just fighting another person on in the rankings to try to get to Alex, would this garner as much attention as this would right now?
I mean, I would still probably tune in, but as far as it being high up on the card, no, it'd be probably like second from the bottom if it was on a main card and it was just it was just Ankalaev versus like Rockich or something like that. Like if that was the fight, it'd probably be second or third from bottom on the main card. Like they wouldn't even open up the main card with that.
Right? Like he's not doing numbers as champion, right? Like no shade to like Magomed. Like he's a really good fighter. Like we've said, like a Magomed
Yeah.
Ankalaev versus an Alexander Rakic fight is a good fight, and I would still watch that fight. But as far as it being a draw, like it pulling in crowds, it gaining popularity with the fans. It's a tough ask. That's like getting like Popeye's biscuits and trying to put like honey in between them, being like, ah man, it's still a biscuit. And with it's a biscuit honey, but them super dry biscuits ain't doing numbers. You know what I mean? Like just because they put honey in between two really dry biscuits doesn't change the fact that it's still a really dry biscuit. You know what I mean? Like it's like, but it makes all the difference for one that's like a proper biscuit. You know what I mean? In the sense of that, the Magomed doesn't know how to draw. So I think that as far as tickets wise goes, and as a business, it's better for Alex to stay champion because he's exciting. The fans love him. He's beloved by the MMA community and the world. He can show up on and defend the belt on 10 days notice, injured, and still knock out former champions. People will buy fights if he's on it. I don't know if people will buy it if it's like if Magomed is the one that has to carry the entire card. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that's why I feel like it may be for fans, it might not be the best case scenario, but for Jamal and Khalil, that would be, because I think that Magomed and Ankalaev is a better matchup for Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree, because both of them are, like I said, great strikers, great fighters in general. And like you said, Khalil Roundtree stood 10 toes down when he fought Alex and got super close. Like, so I think that this is going to be another exciting one. I think probably my top three that I'm most excited for is the Alexa Grasso Natalia Silva fight, the Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena fight, and the Justin Gaethje versus Fazia fight. I think those top three, all these fights are amazing, right? That we've mentioned so far. All of them are amazing. It's a great time to be a fan. What a time to be alive. What a time to be a fan of MMA, right? But those three fights are probably what grabbed my attention the most. And then if we're talking top five, then I would have to put the other two that we're going to go and talk to about in a second. But I think that another one that kind of is in an interest too is the Jack Della Maddalena versus the Bilal Muhammad fight for the welterweight belt. It was supposed to be Shavkat Rakhmonov, but Shavkat 18 finishes, 19, right? No, 18 finishes, 19-0, 8 by submission, 9 by knockout, I believe. Was supposed to face Bilal Muhammad for the belt, but he got injured. So Jack Della Maddalena, the man from down under, will go up, and not will go up, but he will be the person fighting Bilal. Jack Della being a really good boxer, Bilal being a wrestler, classic grappler versus striker match. How do you see it going down?
Yeah, so I think we've said before on here that the Shavkat Bilal fight was supposed to be the crowning of Shavkat. He's the champ now. This is who everybody's looking at. This is who's next up. Unfortunately, I think that because of Shavkat's injury, the UFC had to pull apart what would have been two good matchups and now had to make it much more one-sided in my mind, because I'm a big fan of JDM. I think he's got a lot of skills. I really, if you said who do you hope's gonna win, I'd love to tell you, oh, JDM's gonna go out there and he's gonna knock him out. He's gonna Conor McGregor him in the first second against Aldo. He's first shot, bang. He'll get it done. Do it for the fans. I just don't see it. I think that this matchup favors Bilal a lot. I think that he's going to go and implement a similar game plan to what he did against Leon. I think JDM will do better than Leon did, because I think that his grappling's a little bit better, and his ability to get up from bottom is a little bit better than Leon's. But I just think the grappling difference is a little too much for him to overcome. And while I think if Bilal got cocky and decided to, all his nonsense claims about being the Canelo of MMA, if he
Which is
legit
such a
tried,
wild take.
yeah, he's either super delusional or he's trolling really effectively, because that's insane. And
He doesn't. Yeah.
yeah, so if he decided to do that with JDM, I think JDM sparks him out and pretty easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I don't think that he believes it. I think he's trolling. So he's gonna stick on that cardio, grappling game plan. He'll have some top control, and he'll manage to get through 3 rounds and get his hand raised by decision. I think that it's going to end up stacking up. I don't know if the UFC is doing this on purpose with who they pick to run it, but I think we're building up to a heel Bilal Muhammad gets his title defense and has a really annoying press conference and post-fight speech, and then he's annoying on social media and podcasts for another about like 4 months, maybe 5, and then we get the Shavkat crowning that we've all been waiting for.
It did feel like Shavkat's matchup with Bilal did feel like the coronation of Shavkat to the welterweight championship. As anyone who's watched the show will know, I've been very big on Shavkat since the beginning of his UFC run. I've also been very big on, I was very big on Bilal during his UFC run. I said both were gonna fight for a belt, both would become champion. Bilal did become champion, so hey, Mystic Malik, I'd be making these picks. But I did fall off the Bilal train. And I have so I'm not while he is a good fighter, a good wrestler, and has good cardio and good pace and good pressure, I think that the way he's handled his kind of like the run to the top, I've kind of towards the original run, I was like, man, this dude's gonna be a champ. This when he was on in the beginning of his run, I was like, man, this dude's just what he's got is just, man, the power, the pressure, the pace, the the cardio, this and that. But I think it's just the personality is what made me fall off the train. It's just kind of I think how he's been going about it, but he has been getting eyes, have been getting interest. I think the claim that he is the best striker at welterweight is a hot take. I think that Bilal saying he's the best striker in the UFC and the best striker in the welterweight division is more of a hot take than my hot take of saying that Ilya is going to knock out Islam in the first round of their fight.
Yeah,
because there's actual evidence of Ilya having the ability to do that. I know Bilal said he's going to try to finish him and whatnot. He's the best striker in the UFC. Bilal hasn't had a finish, if I'm not mistaken, since 2018, which is 7 years ago. So
yeah, it was also by ground and pound over another grappler who's going to engage in that.
Okay, so yeah, it's been 7 years since his last finish, almost a decade since his almost 10 years since his last finish. 7 years, almost a decade, right? Against another grappler in ground and pound. Okay, most of Jack's, I would say Jack's ability to finish is leaning towards Jack Della Maddalena, right? JDM. And I think the star power behind this fight leans more towards JDM as well, even though Bilal's a champion. Bilal's, I know he's been talking a lot. Could he say he's the best wrestler / grappler or has best cardio? I think that's actually more of a closer or more of a plausible argument. Whether Bilal's the best wrestler or has the best cardio at welterweight, that one, even though the press conference was kind of like was kind of annoying. I think that like that is a fair thing because his cardio is really good and he has really good wrestling. I'm curious to see what JDM's takedown defense looks like. Because Bilal's not going to stop coming. He's going to keep pressing the takedown. He's going to keep pressing the pace, the pressure, and will Jack get him out of there? But, like they said, every fight starts on the feet. So Jack can get him out of there fairly early on because I think he will do better in this one than like I think a lot of people are giving him credit for. Because when Shavkat came into the UFC, JDM and Ian Gary all came around the same time. Shavkat, Ian Gary, JDM, they were like, oh man, these three are going to be kind of like the future of the welterweight division. And they kind of kept them separate until they kind of got closer to the top. I think that striking wise, JDM has the striking advantage by a long shot. But the wrestling advantage heavily favors Bilal. Cardio wise, I don't know how JDM's cardio is going to hang over the 5 rounds, but we'll see. I want JDM to win, but I think the wrestler in me is saying that Bilal's wrestling may get him another decision win. And then we have the Shavkat fight because the Shavkat versus Bilal fight was like a 90-10 chance for Shavkat winning. It was, if you look at it, it was like 90% chance of Shavkat winning if he fights Bilal. JDM, I think that's a way closer fight. I think that might be 60-40 Bilal or maybe 50-50. How you take it? Will Bilal be annoying if he wins and be obnoxious if he gets his first title defense? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Because he's been telling people, he's like, oh man, people don't respect me. He's like, oh, I'm the best fighter. And then he's going to keep on saying he's the best fighter until he gets Shavkat, which I think Shavkat will win by a large margin. But I do think, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to say JDM by second round KO to the body. Getting super specific out here.
I wish I could go with you, but I just see in my head a 3 rounds to 2 decision victory and Bilal firmly raising both hands and saying, I'm the best fighter in the world. And it's like, calm down, bro. Wait till Shavkat gets here. My big brother gonna beat you up.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, maybe to kind of like circumvent, right? Like he's going for the takedowns. Jack Dilla coming up with a tight uppercut up the center, like a knee, catch him when he goes for a double. I think that Shavkat, when he comes back, is definitely going to be the welterweight champion. So if JDM beats Bilal, which I'm gonna go out on a ledge and thinks he does, he will have to go at Shavkat, and that's a dangerous matchup for JDM. Bilal beats JDM, he will have to go against Shavkat, which most people are saying he's going to lose that fight anyway. So I think that both fighters, it's a hard road ahead because you enjoy your win while you have it, but then it's kind of like, oh man, got to go against the boogeyman of the division. I think that. So what's another fight of the ones we haven't talked about? The Leon Edwards, Sean Brady.
Yeah. If there's someone who in all this like shuffling of opponents that I feel the worst for,
It's Leon
it's Leon
Edwards,
Edwards. Yeah. I feel so bad.
without a doubt.
It's Leon cannot catch a break at all. He's headlining a card in his country where he's the most like with Tom Aspinall, he's the most well-known English fighter currently and just cannot get any favors going at all. To be in this striking matchup against JDM where if you're Leon, you're like, okay, back to my base, back to what I'm used to. It's I'm gonna go out there and refine myself, show everybody the last fight was a fluke. And then on not much notice, the UFC's like, hey, I'm gonna need to take that matchup from you real quick. And who are we gonna get to replace? Take a young up and coming grappler. Enjoy. Who's got super good jiu-jitsu game and wrestling and is is on his like second run up at the top of the division. Like enjoy that one.
I think that's hilarious. Enjoy. I think that, and I think Leon's like a former champion. I think that to because I don't know how much stake I put into the Leon Bilal fight because I mean Leon was it was like 5 a.m. and Leon was fighting with a spine injury or a back injury, right? Like
Mm.
so I think that a healthy Leon do I think he beats Bilal? Yeah, I think so. Just because leading up to that, right? Leading up to the Bilal fight, Bilal Leon goes and fights Kamaru Usman, second greatest welterweight of all time, who is a heavy wrestler, who is a very good wrestler. He had the viral headshot bang moment. The head kick heard around the world. And then when he was definitely losing that fight and then turned it all around in true Rocky fashion. And then fights Kamaru the second time. The best wrestler in the division. Beats him handedly. Goes against the second best wrestler in the division, Kobe Covington. Bodies him. Like Kobe got dog walked
Mm.
by Leon in that fight. So I think that for him to go against the fourth best wrestler in the division at 5 a.m. with the spine injury, I wonder how much that played effect into it. You know what I mean? At the end
Mm.
of the day, a loss is a loss, and he did lose. But if you beat both the best and second best wrestler in the division handedly, I wonder if it was at a normal time and and then he didn't have that spine injury, does that fight against the guy who's technically the fourth best wrestler go a lot more similar to how the other Leon's other fights with against wrestlers go?
Mm.
What do you think?
Yeah. It's I definitely think he's better than he showed that night. I I think he'll be better for sure than his last performance because I think Sean Brady might also engage a bit more in the striking because I think as a young up and comer, Sean definitely is feeling himself right now and he feels like he's ready to do it all. He feels like he's a really well-rounded guy who can strike with the strikers and grapple with the grapplers. And that's one of the reasons why he's such a highly rated prospect and why he seems like a guy who could easily be up there in the mix as far as a guy who could be a champion, assuming, you know, maybe he matches up well with Shavkat, or if Shavkat were to leave the division, I think a guy like Sean Brady could be, in 2, 3 years' time, a guy who you're looking at could be the champ. Uh, so I think Leon will have more success. It's tough to tell how much. Because I still favor Brady in the fight. Obviously, Leon can still win, even in a fight where he's not favored. He showed that in the first Usman fight. He was losing the entirety of the first Usman fight until he landed the head kick. So he definitely has that knockout ability and the striking prowess to win matchups against grapplers, but I I think this is a really tough one for him, and I think it might go Sean Brady's way.
I think originally when I saw this fight, I thought Sean Brady. I had Sean Brady, but the more I think about it, the more I lean towards Leon Edwards getting the win, getting his hand raised by it, because I think he has a y'all must have forgot kind of performance. Like, hey, don't forget about me in the shuffle between like, oh, Shavkat, Bilal, Gary, the Sean Brady. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many people going on at welterweight right now where it feels like Leon is the one that kind of stood there on the dancing floor by himself. But when you saw the run Leon was on prior to the Bilal loss and the run he was on as champion, he's grown so much. Like he's significantly gotten better since the days of him just being a pure kickboxer. Like he's evolved his game to be able to handle, to be able to hang with the two of the best wrestlers in the division. So I find it hard to believe that he, after dominating two of the best wrestlers in the divisions, maybe the division top three, top five in the division's history, that you're going to struggle with someone who's going to be maybe in that like top 10. Rather, once you beat in the top two, it's like if you beat John Jones, I feel like it would be hard for me to believe. Let's say you beat John Jones. If it would be hard for me to believe that the individual who does that would struggle with Sergey Spivak or like Sergey, you know what I mean? Or Volkov or you know what I mean? All good fighters, all really good. But once you've already accomplished, you beat the S tier striker, maybe going down to B tier. I don't know. It's like how do you? It's hard for me to like look at that and go, yeah, that, because you know what I mean. Like that person is gonna beat them even when that person couldn't. You know what I mean? Where I think that Sean Brady's really good, and I do think he has potential to become a champion. And I do think that like when he puts it all together, he does look very good. And so does Leon. So I think that this is going to be a good matchup. I'm looking forward to see how this match shakes out and how the picture at 170 also shakes out. Because you know you got Carlos Pratas who's just slowly working his way up the rankings. So I think that's I think I'm gonna have to go Leon. I'm gonna go Leon third round finish.
Were there any other matchups that have been announced that you want to talk about, or do you want to get into some of UFC Seattle? Because I had some takeaways watching it. Yeah. So with that, it's I'll go into UFC Seattle a little bit. It's so Gian Silva this past weekend, UFC Seattle, 28 years old in the featherweight division, goes out there. He's like, no one's having more fun in the fight than Gian Silva. Bro, on his walkout, is having so much fun. No one's having more fun when Bruce Buffer's reading their name out than Gian Silva. And then when the fight starts, he's having so much almost childish fun where if the other guy does a cool thing, he wants to high five him and give him a fist bump, like, "Oh, nice, nice kick," or "Nice attempt." And in the middle of that, uh, on commentary, Michael Bisping and Paul Felder are kind of a little bit criticizing him for doing that too much and too much of the friendliness and the fist bumping and the and and not getting on with it. And then a good 30 seconds to a minute later, he just flatlines the guy that he's fighting against, is standing over him, looking at the referee like, hey, this is over if you want to call it. And the referee's like, keep going. And he's like, all right, here we go. And then starts like unleashes a combo of elbows and punches and hammer fists and all that to the guy on the ground, and then hits a dance. Like, no one's having more fun fighting than Gian Silva. I don't know how you get to that where that's how you deal with the nerves and the fight, is just like live it up and enjoy it. But guy's living his best life in the octagon right now, and is gathering a lot of momentum with the fight style and the entertainment, and then to come out and call any name out. Like, forget a guy who's kind of put himself in villain territory, to call out anybody and to get your call out and so soon in a quick turnaround like that. This is one of those opportunities where when Hamzat was fighting all the time and he really got to put himself in front of everybody's eyeballs and make his name stick around in people's heads, this is a similar opportunity for Gian Silva, but even on a bigger stage, because he's fighting somebody else that put themselves in the headlines. Kamzat was doing that against guys in the beginning who didn't really have names yet. Whereas Gian Silva's put himself in that situation right now where he can launch himself up into the top 10 at featherweight and, you know, look to carry that momentum into maybe a title challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, John Silva be having fun, and I think you love to see that for fighters. You know, when they're just in their flow. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, not much to add on after that analysis. Great analysis. So yeah, props to John Silva. Props to the fighting nerds. Man, how how amazing has that team been since they've bursted onto the scene? Like, it feels like they don't have a ceiling of of how high their potential slash superstardom could grow. It feels very reminiscent of the that danger zone era of the UFC, where, you know, back in the day when there was all those major camps like Greg Jackson, aka American Top Team, the Extreme Couture, you know,
5-star.
yeah, TriStar and all that stuff. It feels like kind of reminiscent of that feeling, because, you know, nowadays there's a lot of really good gyms, right? You know, there's like a couple, you know, where it's like you have the MMA Factory in France, you have Team Lobo in Mexico, you have City Kickboxing in New Zealand, you have the variety of American gyms that we kind of mentioned a moment ago, and even more, right? There is not a shortage of really good gyms, but man, it feels like the wave they've been on, the popularity. I don't think we've seen this in a long time, or maybe in general. Just even fighters who are not associated with that gym, wearing the glasses with the tape on them, like joining in and kind of like joining in on this like fighting nerds persona, and they're like really kind of like adopting it as adopting their like style, their like the way they just the whole vibes of it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we we haven't seen it in a minute where like just like people just like, you're like, man, everybody here is great. Oh man, we just love, like, during the fights, you see people just wearing the fighting nerds glasses just cause, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, as far as marketing, right now is the kind of
Marketing's
era.
phenomenal.
Yeah, right now, in the kind of where we're at right now culturally in the UFC and MMA, it's kind of Brazilian marketing is what's happening in the kind of you have kind of both ends. So fighting nerds feels very intentional. They have the glasses, and they always make sure to have them on them when they do their post fight, and everything
They're
that they
cool
do.
guys.
Yeah, everything they do feels very intentional, but not like forced or corny. It feels like we're
Mhm.
definitely doing this and let you know and putting ourselves out there for everybody. And then the unintentional Brazilian marketing has been Alex with his Shama thing. Like Shama took over the entire sport in
Yeah,
a year. The first time
Shaman
anybody
no
heard
Shaman.
Shama was maybe a year, 18 months ago, and now everybody says it. People who don't even watch the UFC will say
People don't
Shama.
who speak Portuguese.
Yeah.
Like
Also, I don't even think it's
people
a
who
real
don't.
word. I think it's something he
It
said.
is. And so he was
Is it
saying
a
that like he said it means let's go. Like it's
yeah,
like showing excitement. He's like, oh, it's like let's go.
right, but
You
I
know what I
don't think
mean?
it's like an official like in Portuguese. I don't think if you type in I don't think like in Google Translate it'll spit out Portuguese like let's go or something like that. I think
I I wonder
because
because it might be like slang,
I never heard any other Portuguese or Brazilian fighter say that. So I
but
think that's
it also could
something.
be slang.
Well, it could be slight, or it could just be something that he said specifically. Because whatever it is, he was
It's
definitely the
true.
first person I ever heard say it, and so he has him just looking stone face or at the camera and saying Shama is one of the big macro marketing trends in the UFC. As if you're on UFC
It's like
social
the John
media,
Cena. You can't see me.
yeah, where the even if he's not at the event, people will just if the UFC pans across the fans in the arena, someone's gonna shadow box and someone's gonna yell Shama. Like that's what the crowd's gonna do.
Man. And if you want, it says, and it, I found it. It says Shama is, it says for Shama, it says the slang meaning that Alex Pereira uses Shama is used as a slang similar to saying let's go or come on in English. It is an expression of excitement and encouragement. The word has become hugely popular among Pereira fans who chant it during his fights and events. And it was the question was, what does it mean? And someone was explaining
But
what
that's what I mean. Among his
Shama.
fans, like I don't think that that was something anybody really heard until he started doing it. So it's that's what I mean. This is the Brazilian marketing era.
Yeah. Because think about how much slang is regional just to like where we are compared to like slang in other parts of the country. Because I've gone to some states where they was using slang where I was just like, bro, I don't even know what that means. And I feel like and I'd be knowing, and I feel like generally I'm like, okay, like I feel like I'd be in the know, right?
Hmm.
But then there's sometimes I'll be hearing slang, I'm just like, and it also could be just me getting older and being washed. You know what I mean? Where I'm like having to ask like younger cousins, like just asking family, being like, hey, or just asking people, just being like, what does that mean? They'd be like, this. I'm like, huh. But I feel that it could be something regional. You know what I mean? Because it made me think about it because of how much slang that we have in just our area
Hmm.
that is very specific and regional to this area that is nowhere else in the United States.
Yeah, I
So,
guess.
because I mean, like if you ask someone in Switzerland about some of the slang we use here,
Hmm.
they've been like, they may have never heard about it because it's not something that's like super. Some of the words are kind of more mainstream, but like not, I would say the majority, I think. Because there's certain slang that kind of like penetrate like countrywide, you know what I mean? Or
Hmm.
even globally, maybe due to music, uh, celebrities, influence, you know what I mean? And I think that maybe this word is one of those situations where because Alex Pereira is the second best pound for pound fighter, with John Jones being number one. Don't argue with me. I'm not trying to hear it. I think that, and him being one of the the most popular fighters in the sport, and like almost one of the faces of the company, being such a global superstar now, it kind of made popularize those words where people. Alex is unintentionally very cool. Like, even though he himself says he's a very shy guy who just be vibing, the world sees him as very cool and very unintentionally cool. Like, and when you get people who people perceive as really cool, they want to be like that cool person they see. So you see Alex on the camera being like, Shama, no Shama, 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 after every time he knocks out a person in like 60 seconds, 90 seconds, people will be like, yeah, Shama. You know what I mean? Like, don't know what that means. You remember how many people were saying Shama had no clue what it meant? Until people started asking. There was people mid-interviews in different shows just being like, talking to Alex being like, Shama, he'd be like, Shama. And they'd be like, people would be like, I have to ask, I have to kind of like break this line of the interview questions. What does this mean? And Alex was just like, let's go. We're gonna do it, make it happen, make it do what it do. But yes, like you said, the marketing for the Fighting Nerds has been phenomenal, right? Like, people have adopted this like way, the vibes, I guess you could say, for lack of better words, but they've adopted the Fighting Nerds as their own. You know what I mean? Like, the fans, fighters, the community. You know what I mean? And I think what helps is the four fighters who are kind of like front running, kind of leading the charge for the Fighting Nerds are all very exciting, cool, and charismatic guys. You know what I mean? Where their fight styles makes you want to, the way they fight, their fight styles, how they prepare for fights, how they go and approach fights, makes you want to go watch their fights. But also outside of that, they seem like very cool guys. You know what I mean? Where people want to be like, man, this Fighting Nerds stuff. Tell me more about this. I want to be cool. I want to feel good. Hey, you know what I mean? Like, they are, like you said, you can tell, like, during the press conference, during the interviews, everything they do is very intentional and very, like, I don't know if calculated is the right word, but it feels like, but it's very intentional, but not cringy or whatever it may, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel forced. It just feels like, hey, this is what we're about. This is what we do. And this is where we're going to go. If you rock with that and you vibe with that, bet. Join us. Join along. If not, kick rocks. It's fine. You know what I mean? It's like if you're not vibing with, it's like Degeneration X used to say. You know what I mean? So I think that it's kind of one of those kind of situations where if you rock with us, awesome, cool, great. If not, it is what it is. We're still gonna be great. We're still gonna be phenomenal. We're still gonna be winning championships soon. So, like The Rock said, it doesn't matter what you said. So yeah, I think that this is a win overall. They continue to impress. They continue to do amazing things. So yeah, shout out to the Fighting Nerds. Shout out to Gene Silva. Shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Mauricio. Shout out to the whole Fighting Nerds crew. You know, y'all are amazing. Y'all awesome. You know what I mean? Definitely emerging stars. I think that there's a fight on there. Like, before we go into the main fight, I will say this. If you were watching last time, is few times where the entire prelims were all knockouts, all finishes, which was phenomenal, which is crazy because it rarely ever happens, right? Where you might get one finish, you might get two finishes, you might get three, or you might get all of it except for one. But it's so rare that the entire prelims from start to end were like pop, 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 bangers, right? But the fight I want to get your opinion on, Henry Cejudo, Song Yadong. Did you watch it? What was your opinions going into it? Because I have follow-up questions for you, and I have follow-up to see, because I'm curious on your opinion on something, but I want to hear your initial thoughts first.
Okay, so yes, I watched it. I watched the entire main card and most of the prelims. When the fight got announced, I kind of figured Song would win. That was my thought going in. Just because of Henry's age and where he's at in the sport, I kind of think it's a little bit past his prime to be facing off against someone like Song, who's really well-rounded and big for the weight class. I think there's certain matchups that Henry can take where he'd do well with his grappling. But so yeah, I figured Song would win, but it probably wouldn't be super exciting because Henry's still pretty durable, in my opinion. So I thought, okay, well, it's going to be a decision win, which is why we didn't spend that much time previewing this card, because on paper, with this card, there was potential for guys to kind of show up and show out, but it wasn't one of those where it's so stacked and you're going, how is this not a pay-per-view? Because every now and again, the UFC will put that together, but this was not it. This was one of those ones where on paper you were looking at it going, okay, I see why this is a regional card, why it's not a pay-per-view, why this is on ESPN Plus.
I feel like we get cards like this so that we can get cards like 314, like the UFC Miami card, like the Montreal card. You know what I mean? Like you get those when you get those Yair Rodriguez, Patricio Pitbull, Michael Chandler versus Patty Pimblett, the Dan Ige versus Charles Woodson. You know what I mean? Like the Poetan versus the Gaethje versus Fiziev. I think we get cards like that so that we can get these super stack cards, because I feel like you can't have those super stack cards without some cards in the middle, right? To understand the sunshine, you got to see the rain, as they say. But no pun intended, because it's it being Northwest. But like I think that's understandable. And you kind of answered my second question. Where I before that, I did have Song Yadong winning. Going into this fight, I thought Song Yadong would win, and he ended up winning via after the eye pro cap, and they could try to have another round. They went to scorecards. Song Yadong ended up winning. For you, now that Henry Cejudo, Henry Cejudo, as you said, is getting older, 37, 38. He hasn't won a fight in 5 years since 2020, right? He hasn't won a fight in half a decade since 2020 in 5 years' time, right? What's next for him? Do you think it was a mistake that he retired like back when he beat Dominic Cruz, when he was riding high and was champion of the world? Do you think that it was a mistake to kind of retire early and kind of vacate the belt, take 3 years off the sport, and then come back? And now we've seen that like he's on this streak where he hasn't won a fight in 5 years. What are your thoughts?
So,
like, what's next for him?
Well, it's kind of tough.
Do you think it was a mistake?
I think to order it chronologically, yeah, for sure, it was a super big mistake to walk away when he walked away and to come back, it never made any sense at the time. We can't know what was truly in his heart at the time, but it seemed to me like he overplayed his cards and thought that being the Olympic gold medalist, flyweight champion, and then bantamweight champion, that once he achieved that he was now in some stratosphere of popularity that he could call shots and decide what was going to happen. And whether it was that or he genuinely felt like he had done it all, in either scenario, if you're going to come back, it's a complete mistake to step away in your athletic prime and then come back later. That's not something you could do in the fight game. And at this point, he's definitely on the he left in his prime and is now back trying to win fights on the downslope when it's much more difficult for him. So that was clearly a mistake. On the night in Seattle, he was losing the fight pretty decently,
And
in
so
my opinion.
I thought so. I thought so too.
Yeah, and then Song was holding his hands like this uh, defensively for almost the entire fight and poked Henry in the eye, like full Three Stooges style, like boom, like both eye bang, and then uh, Henry ended up not being able to see out of, I think, his left eye. It was all blurry and fuzzy,
I think
and
so.
a lot of people criticized him for taking the full 5 minutes and then audibly saying that he couldn't see, because the thinking goes, well, if you wanted to keep fighting, you wouldn't tell anybody that. You just pretend that you can see so you can keep fighting. And to not do that shows some sort of cowardice or unwillingness to fight or something like that, that somehow makes you a bad person. I don't agree. I think if your vision's affected in a fight, you should absolutely stop fighting and protect your eyes, because as much as you can get, you know, we have the technology for new hips and they can fix a lot of stuff with like your joints, your elbows and stuff like that. And there's stem cell therapies and stuff for things like your shoulders and your wrists and different things. And they could do a lot of different work with like knees and cartilage and stuff like that. We don't have the technology currently for eyes. So you should protect those as much as you possibly can. It's your eyes and your brain should be what you're mainly protecting. And if at any point those are in serious danger, you should stop fighting. It's not worth it, especially when you're not getting pay-per-view points. It's you're not getting participation in this beyond what you're contractually obligated to get. There's no point. It's not worth it. If you're gonna lose function of your body permanently, especially something as important as eyes, there's no reason to keep fighting. It's ridiculous for anyone to expect you to. Uh, so, did he want the fight to stop? Yeah, as he should. Anyone who's telling you, no, you should just pretend you can, like, I don't think Michael Bisping thinks it's super cool that he kept fighting and now has one eye. I don't think that he thinks that's like really awesome now that he's post his fighting career. I doubt he thinks that's like, yeah, that was a real worth it thing. Like, as much as I'm sure he tries not to live in regret, I'm sure he would very much like both his eyes to work and not to have a glass one. So, uh, people criticizing Henry need to get off his back. I think he's super cringe most of the time, and I hate the way that he maneuvered his career and leaning into being cringe. I don't get it. He has such an awesome story that he refuses to embrace. Um, So, yeah, for Henry moving forward, you should retire. Obviously, you have a podcast with Kamaru. Both of you should probably retire and just do that instead and focus on other business ventures and whatever. Uh, you're not going to be champion again. This isn't for you. Please stop. For Song, uh, onward and upward. Still, uh, I mean, he probably should have had at least a point taken away. And if he continues to fight with the fingers out, like, just fix it, bro. Like, control your fingers. You know what I mean? Be responsible for your weapons and stop poking people in the eye. And if you're going to poke somebody in the eye, at least fix it and close your fist. Don't be still, like, pointing your fingers out at them the whole time. Like, that's completely ridiculous. And, I mean, where does... Let me pull up the rankings real quick. Okay, so he's sitting at number 6 right now. And I don't know. I just don't see him beating... I don't see him beating Marab. I think Sean beats him. I think Jan beats him. I think Umar beats him. I think Sandhagen beats him. I think Figueiredo beats him. So if your Song, unfortunately, I don't know that you're going to beat those guys in front of you, but that's probably where your next fight is looking at, is someone in front of you. There's no need to rematch Henry. I get why Henry wants that. Hypothetically, in like a fighter's mind, I could understand why he wants that, but there's no reason for Song to do that, and Henry should just retire. Even if that's not how he wants to go out, there's no reason for him to keep fighting, and there's no reason for them to do that rematch. Song was winning the fight. He will win the fight if they do it again. There's no two ways about it, and it's not like Song. If you're Henry, it's not like this is going to majorly boost your legacy. It's not like Song's going to go on. Like, if you can beat him right now in this moment, that Song's going to go on and be a champion for a long time, and it's going to make your career look super good. This isn't a legacy fight. Song's going to lose to the other contenders. And at some point, there will be another generation that rises up before the current guys who are at the top vacate it. So Song will be a guy who was competitive in the UFC, who was a trailblazer for China, but he'll never be Henry Cejudo, let's say that. Like, Henry Cejudo's long-term legacy in the sport is way better than Song Yadong. So there's no legacy in this. There's no money in this. This isn't a money matchup that the fans are clamoring to see. Henry should retire. Song should move on to somebody else in the top 5 who's going to beat him.
Yeah.
I have a few more points I just want to hit real quick.
Yeah,
on
for sure,
UFC
for sure.
Seattle. Okay, so Ricky Simone was on a 3-loss streak, and so he snapped that. He was one of the guys who won on the prelims with a KO, and he had a nasty 2-punch combo where he hit I think it was the hook and then the straight behind it. He hit a really nasty finish. So if you haven't seen that, I would recommend go check it out. And he's still 32, so if he could use this as a block to come back. I mean, it's got to be now if it's going to be at any time. But it's I just wanted to give him that shout out. 34-year-old Austin Vanderford, the husband of Paige Van Zandt, made his UFC debut after being on the Contender Series a million years ago and somehow didn't get the contract. He looked really good with the grappling. It was a catch weight because it was super short notice for him. But he's going to be a competitor at 170, and his grappling looked super good. So, I mean, we'll see how high a level he is right now, because at 34, you'd figure you're pretty much what you're going to be. But he looked really good. There was that moment after his fight where his opponent shoved him, and I couldn't tell exactly what that was, if it was just kind of heat of the moment frustration, or the only other thing that I thought maybe could have been that I haven't seen anybody ask the guy about or say is it looked like he maybe very possibly might have had when he had the handcuff, it looked like he maybe had the finger in the glove, at least for a moment, while he had the handcuff, which is the
Mm.
position where it ended up getting finished in. So I think maybe that might have been what that was about, but still, like he wasn't winning that fight either way. So kind of chill out on that a little bit. But also shoving somebody after the fight, it was like a two-hand push. It's
Crazy
not that
work.
serious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that serious. Like people say, oh, like this is like Paul Daly. Get him out of like Paul Daly was full on throwing strikes, bro. It's a two-hand push is how you like that's basic sandlot football stuff that happens between sixth graders. Like it's not that serious. It's that guy will be okay. But Austin Vanderford looked good in his UFC debut. Wanted to give him a shout out. We already did Gian Silva and his awesome performance. I wanted to highlight this. So Rob Font was supposed to fight Dominic Cruz in this fight, but Dominic Cruz couldn't make it because of his shoulder, and he had to retire. So Rob Font fought this kid, Gian Matsumoto. And if you have not watched this fight, I highly recommend you do. So this wasn't his debut. He had a few UFC fights before, but this was the moment that stood out to me mentally of why I'm going to remember 25-year-old Gian Matsumoto. So he ends up split decision loss against Rob Font, who is a top 10 guy. And the the grappling that this guy showed at 25 for this weight class, I mean, he's not ready for this fight show. He's not ready for the top 10 yet, but to me what I saw in this kid already at 25 years old with the grappling on short notice and to go to a split decision loss with a vet like Rob Font, I mean, this guy for me, I would if you're the UFC, don't bring him up too fast cuz he just showed you he's not ready for the top 10. So give him about another year, maybe year and a half of guys who are talented veterans but unranked at 135, and then start to kind of slowly bring him up. Because I think by the time he's about 28, 29, which is 3, 4 years from now, I think you'll have the current guys at the top kind of aging out some, and this Gian Matsumoto, which he was rocking the GSP Japanese headband on the way
Mhm.
into the octagon. It's I think he might be he's one of the guys I'm highlighting as a possible future champion at 135 because to be that good at 25 where you're almost showing that top 10 level, this is one of those ones to come back in like give him some time, like 3, 4 years. I think this guy will be ready. And then last note on this one, Fluffy Hernandez continues his train choo choo all the way through middleweight. This time he took out uh, duh, duh, duh. he took out Brendan Allen. So, and I can't remember exactly what he said because it's been a minute, but uh, there was some sort of difficulty in camp for Anthony Hernandez. I can't remember what it was, but so there was some sort of limiting factor. But his work rate in this division is the difference maker. Brendan Allen isn't less talented than Anthony Hernandez. He got outworked by Anthony Hernandez. And right now we're seeing with the kind of pressure and dominance and grappling styles, man, pace is so important. And to have that gas and to keep going. And Anthony Hernandez has one of those gas tanks where even if you're maybe technically better than him at things, which I think was why there were so many reversals in it, I think Brendan Allen and his wrestling and jiu-jitsu might be technically better than Anthony Hernandez, which is maybe why Anthony couldn't hold those positions. But Anthony's such a dog that he'll just keep working, like Pantoja, like Marab. It's these guys who just keep going and keep pressing that pace. Eventually, they just get to you. Even a three-round atmosphere like this, where you'd say, "Oh, well, Brendan Allen's not going to get tired." Man, the pace that got put on him with the grappling and all the transitions and they keep going, Anthony made him tired and made him fatigue in 3 rounds, and ultimately that's how he got the decision. So shout out to Anthony Hernandez. He's another one that's on the way up and could be a future champion.
All good shout outs. Gene Matsumoto, you probably don't I'm not sure if you remember him, but we talked about him a while back. Maybe I don't think it was on air. It might have been like off air before the conflict management show was a thing. But I remember we kind of had a similar conversation, and I remember telling you, like, hey, this dude, one before, like, during Tatsuo Taira's like original kind of like when he was first starting to get on his run, like, oh, another half Japanese person in the UFC. Hey, this dude's gonna maybe doing something, you know what I mean? And he put on a good performance. We were like, oh man, that dude looking forward to seeing another fight from him. And it's good to see him get back into the cage. I do think that, like, while he may not be ready for a top 10 opponent, at 25 to be that good and put in that kind of performance, I say, hey, this dude does have potential to, like, make it there, you know? I was curious, do you remember that conversation from, like...
I think it might have been after his last fight, because he fought last in, I think, like April of 2024. And I think it was Brad Katona. It might have been after the Brad Katona fight.
I think it might have been, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh. All right, well, that's the music.
Yeah, that's our music. That's our time. We kind of went on a really long tangent on that one. Both fighters are dope. Tom's dope. John's dope. Cyril's dope. All the other fighters we've talked about, you know. But yes, hope you had a good time listening. We had a good time recording. Come back next week. We'll be talking more. We'll be chopping it up. It's also, like 5 a.m.?
Might as well be.
Yeah. Say again?
Might as well be.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, subscribe, comment, all those things. We appreciate you. Keep checking us out. Keep watching. Keep vibing with us. We would appreciate it all. We appreciate the support. Thank you all. Till next time.